Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Carl, I'm a recovery coach here at Capital Recovery Center. This is our all recovery meeting for the day. The article I have here is The Gifts of Recovery, 10 Powerful Rewards. It says recovery isn't just about leaving addiction behind. It's about moving toward a life full of purpose, peace, and powerful transformation. Discover 10 beautiful gifts that sobriety makes possible. When we first enter recovery, the motivation is often simple. We just want the pain to stop. Whether it's physical, emotional, or spiritual suffering, addiction takes a deep toll, and in early sobriety and relief feels like a miracle. But as time passes, the memory of the pain can fade. The desperation we once felt may no longer be as sharp. That's why it's so important to have not just to escape the past, but to embrace a better future. Recovery just doesn't remove the bad, it opens the doors to a life full of beautiful, unexpected, and deeply rewarding gifts. Here are just 10 of them. So, number one, a life with meaning and purpose. Addiction narrows your world until all that matters is the next fix or drink. It hijacks your energy, focus, and time. A recovery gives all of that back and more. When the fog lifts, you begin to ask deeper questions. What do I want from life? What matters to me? In sobriety, you're free to build a life that reflects your true values, not your cravings. You'll just set goals that matter, pursue them with clarity, and feel the deep satisfaction of living with the intention. So it's a life with meaning and purpose. It talks about addiction narrows your world until all that matters in the next fix or drink, and hijacks your energy, focus, and time. So like it talks about like your life was consumed with drugs and alcohol, and my life was, you we talk about purpose. So like my purpose was is getting that next one, and my life was consumed with drugs and alcohol, 24/7. And so since I've been in recovery, like started to navigate what my purpose was in life. I thought I really didn't have one. And the longer I stayed here, right, the better I've gotten, and the more I change, the more I grow. And for me, my purpose is to help other recovering addicts and people that are suffering get into recovery. That's like my main purpose today. And I really I'm grateful and I'm blessed that I have an opportunity to give back. Once it talks about we just wanted the pain to stop, and that was my main focus when I got into early recovery. I just wanted the pain to stop, the emotional and spiritual suffering that I was going through. I just wanted to stop, but like I had to stop using drugs and alcohol first and foremost, and I had to be patient. I had to, stay committed and not use one day at a time. I had to continue to stay here and do what was asked of me. And it was through other recovering addicts that helped me, that guided me, and supported me through the good, the bad, and the ugly. And just one day at a time, that's all we can focus on. It says number two, the ability to help others. One of the greatest rewards of recovery is being able to be of service to others, especially those still struggling. When you share your story, you show others that real change is possible. You become living proof that even the darkest past can lead to a brighter future. And that's some powerful stuff right there. And then helping others, your own recovery depends. You're reclaiming your self-worth. You walk with your head high, and you get to be a part of the solution. So I'll give you a little brief background of my story. Right, my life was controlled with drugs and alcohol. I endured a lot of pain and suffering. I continued to chase one more day in and day out. I was broken, lost, confused, and I could not just stop using drugs and alcohol. Right, and I went to treatment many times, and this last time I went to treatment again, and I continued to do things like afterwards, like aftercare was important, right? Because I know recovery just doesn't stop in treatment. Recovery continues to grow and change and it's a lifelong process. I had to stay committed to it, right? And that's what I've done. Coming up on 7.5 years. Um, and to give back from me staying and growing and changing and continuing not to use drugs and alcohol one day at a time, I can continue to give back. I can help others that are struggling that didn't think recovery was possible, just like me. I can also help them, bring them out of the depths of addiction, and that's a beautiful thing. It's crazy how recovery can work. It's one act helping another, and that's what we do. We help, we support, and we try to get through things together. Because I tried to do things on my own for many, many years, and it never worked out. Until I, got into recovery and I started to take suggestions and start to listen and take action, and my life started to change. My life started to grow, and I started to get better. My relationship started to get better. And I want more of it, so that's why I stay here. It says number 3, the power to chase your dreams. Sobriety doesn't just help you survive; it empowers you to thrive. With the mental clarity, energy, and emotional tools you gain in recovery, you'll be better equipped to pursue your passions, start new projects, or go after long buried dreams. The same discipline and resilience that help you stay sober will help you succeed in every area of your life. What was once impossible is now within reach. Yeah, we talk about recovery is like behind our wildest dreams, and like, what does that look like? Well, for me, is just being clean. Actually not using drugs and alcohol. That's all I wanted in the beginning, right? And like now, like I have this, I have that. Now I'm not just talking about material things. I'm just talking about like the happiness and the peace and the serenity that I have today. Which I never thought I could get. And it talks about it's like what once was impossible is now in reach, and like anything, the sky's the limit, right? I put limitations on myself, right? And that's through negative self-talk. I can't, right? There's no way possible. I can't do this. I can't do that. I always put on these roadblocks in front of me that I just couldn't get over. I was my biggest enemy. My worst critic, and I can beat myself down. And I was the biggest hurdle to get into recovery. Like I couldn't just get out of this. And man, I am so grateful. I'm so blessed that I can live life without using drugs and alcohol, which I never thought was possible. But I'm here today, all right, and we continue to move forward, and we don't have to use no matter what. Whatever happens in life, I know that if I use, I make things worse, right? For me, there's nothing positive that comes out from me using drugs and alcohol, and that's one thing that recovery has taught me is I get to know myself. I know what I do like and what I don't like, and as before, I just was I wasn't living. I was just existing, trying to survive. And now I can experience life, and go through the good times, go through the bad times, and we just take it one day at a time. And I got people that love and care about me and support me and will help me, and life gets better. Number 4, meaningful relationships. Addiction isolates. It damages trust, breeds dishonesty, and turns relationships into transactions. Recovery restores connections. It gives you the ability to form deep, genuine relationships built on trust, communication, and care. Whether it's family you're reconnecting with, new friendships you're forming, or a support network or fellow travelers, these bonds become one of the most healing parts of the journey. Yeah, man, I got a lot of healthy relationships today. And some of them, I rebuilt in recovery. because it talks about where is it at? It turns to whether the family is reconnecting with new friends you're forming or a support network with fellow travelers. These bonds become one of the most healing parts of the journey. And if I didn't have meaningful relationships, um, I truly don't believe I wouldn't be here. Because people cared for me, people loved me up when I didn't love myself. People cared about me, they supported me, right? And that's what we do. We help one another. And as my past relationships when I was in active addiction, it talks about my relationships like transactional. What can I get from you? What can you get from me? There wasn't no genuine relationship. There was no genuine friendship, like no genuine concern for one another. It's just, so what can I get from you and what can you get from me? And today I have healthy and meaningful relationships that I'm truly grateful for, because if I didn't have them, I wouldn't be here for sure. And we go through things together, and like I don't have to go through recovery alone, because I went through active addiction isolated. I isolated myself from the world. I isolated myself from friends and family, unless something it was in it for me, right? We talk about the transactional in the relationships, and that's not healthy, And I start to repair old relationships, that ones that need to be repaired, and I created new friendships and new relationships in recovery. And like I said, we can go through it together. We don't have to isolate ourselves. It says number 5, a sense of inner well-being. In addiction, many of us feel like there's something missing, an emptiness inside that no substance can fill. Recovery teaches us to sit with ourselves, to face the discomfort, and to slowly develop a sense of inner peace. That vague feeling of being wrong or off begins to fade, replaced by the quiet confidence that comes from living honestly. This is the beginning of real self-acceptance, and it feels like coming home. Yeah, man. We talk about self-acceptance a lot in recovery, and if I'm not accepting of myself, how am I going to be accepting of others? So like, recovery is an inside job. We have to be loving and caring and accepting of ourselves. Then we can continue the journey of, loving, caring, and accepting others. And it says recovery teaches us to sit with ourselves, and that's a hard one to do, right? It's a hard one to do because our minds can race, and our minds is a powerful thing, and little by little, by working on myself, the shame and the guilt and the discomfort, right, the worrying, that stuff starts to fade away. Doesn't go away completely, right? Because these things, emotions and feelings and thoughts arise time to time in recovery, but we don't have to stay stuck in them. We can experience them, we can feel, and we can deal, and we can just express ourselves with a sponsor, a mentor, a friend, family member, and the support that we receive in recovery is awesome, because like I said earlier, our relationships were not, for me anyway, were not meaningful in active addiction. There was no healthy communication. There was no expressing myself how I really feel. It was just getting what I wanted and moving on to the next. 6, emotional recovery and resilience. Getting sober is one of the part of the healing process, but staying clean and learning to live fully requires emotional sobriety. This means learning to deal with life on life's terms. Oh, that's a big one. Facing disappointment without escape, feeling emotions without drowning in them, making space for joy, grief, anger, and gratitude alike. Over time, you become emotional grounded, able to navigate ups and downs without being thrown off course. You become stronger, calmer, and even unshakable. Yeah, so it says we can't facing a disappointment without escape, feeling emotions without drowning in them. And that's something that, I sure done it. Like, I always wanted to escape. I didn't want to face my emotions and feelings and face the facts and face reality. I would drown in drugs and alcohol so I wouldn't have to feel, right? Well, I was feeling, but I just didn't want to feel what the pain that I was causing to myself and others, and so I would try to deflect. I would try to avoid. Um, I try to not face reality. I was in denial, right? And I was in fantasy, right? If I can't see it, then it doesn't exist, which is not true. Out of sight, out of mind kind of thinking, and you're eventually they like I understand like the consequences are always going to be there, today, tomorrow, and years down the road, right? The consequences don't go away, and I endured a lot of consequences when I was using drugs and alcohol, right? When the pain got great enough, right, and I got sick and tired being sick and tired, I started to do something. It was just time. It was going to die or me, get clean and stop using drugs and alcohol, or just continue to live in misery, which I just didn't want to do anymore. I had to do something different. It says, optimism for the future. When you're deep in addiction, it's hard to imagine things ever getting better. The future feels like a dead end, or worse, something to be feared. But in recovery, you start to experience growth. Your days get lighter. You build momentum, and with that comes hope, real lasting earned hope. Even if you don't know exactly where life is heading, you're on the right path, and that's along gives you the reason to wake up excited for what's next. Yeah, man. It talks about it's hard to imagine my life getting better, and I was stuck in that state of mind, because the way I was living, I was in a bad way. So how could I imagine my life getting better or me getting better, staying stuck in that frame of mind of negativity? I was negative. Like I said, I was my worst critic. Um, Full of excuses, full of lies, and I was deceitful. I was self-righteous, self-willed, and I was just full of a lot of bad traits. Until I started to change and grow. And first and foremost, I always say I had to stop using drugs and alcohol. That first had to go. And when I got into recovery. It started to eliminate all the excuses that I came in with, this, that. We can make up a lot of stuff, right? And the excuses and the lying and being deceitful and telling half truths, that's just causing myself harm. I had to get to the exact nature of what was going on with me. That I had to get to the root cause of why I'm using drugs and alcohol, why I continue to use drugs and alcohol. Is it because of fear? What am I running from? Am I in denial? Am I dealing with this? Is it grief? There's a trauma, all kinds of stuff, right? We get to learn about ourselves in recovery, which is a beautiful thing. It can be uncomfortable. Recovery can be an uncomfortable thing because we're facing ourselves. We're facing our emotions and feelings, and not just facing it, we're expressing it, and there's many ways to do that. Journaling, step work, we write it down, go over it with a mentor, friend, sponsor, getting it out. We have to let this stuff out. And that's, if we're not open and honest and not getting out what we've been holding on to and going over it with a trusted friend, family, or sponsor, we can stay stuck with this stuff, and that's one of the reasons why I continue to use. I didn't want to express my emotions and feelings, and if I don't express myself, how am I going to receive the help that I need? You ever heard that saying, closed mouths don't get fed? Like, how am I going to get the help if I'm not, addressing what was really going on with me? Healthy communication, and talking with other recovering addicts. And you don't have to tell everybody, but you have to tell somebody. And that's what I was taught here, But yeah, that was our all recovery meeting for the day. The gifts of recovery. And there's powerful rewards in the gifts of recovery, man. And like I received a lot of gifts, and that's what they are. They're gifts, and but like, the only way I can keep these gifts is by to give back to others, what was freely given to me. People helped me uh, on many, many occasions, and I stay grateful. I stay blessed for that. Because without other recovering addicts and my friends and my family and the new relationships I've built, and the work I've done and the change and the growth that happens here, um, it's a beautiful thing, and like I wouldn't want to no other way, you know. I just have to continue to do the things that is suggested of me, and they can be basic, right? But they are required for me. I must do these things to continue to stay here. And I want to see what life has, because life always has more to offer. The blessings are endless. I just have to continue to follow direction. Well, my name is Carl. I'm a recovery coach here at Capital Recovery Center. Until next time, we'll see you later.